Hi, I'm Tony Grayson from the Federal Acquisition Institute. I'm the program manager for the FACC program, and I'm glad to be here today.
I'm Bob Namco. I'm with Greenlight Acquisitions. I am a retired federal employee, and we are here because the past debriefing seminar was something that we are both interested in from different perspectives. From the FAI point of view, it's to teach the procurement community exactly what they should be looking for as far as debriefings go. From my side, I'm looking more from the private sector side and what we expect in the private sector whenever there is a debriefing. So much of what we saw in there took into effect a lot of the individual tasks that contracting officers go through in their preparation for a debriefing, and by the same token, what the industry has to do. And some of my observations were centered around the fact that it appeared to me that the government really did their homework whenever they prepared for this. They were set up in such a way that they had one voice, and that one voice commanded the audience. They didn't allow interruptions from industry, and I thought it was very well orchestrated.
I agree. I think the contracting officer clearly was chairing it, and the contracting officer should chair it. And they had a clear agenda. They set up what the rules of engagement were right from the front. When the contractor tried to deviate from that, they called the contractor to task right away. So I thought that was great. So obviously they were quite well prepared for the debriefing.
And that's one thing that the acquisition professionals out there that saw this mock debriefing should take into consideration. Nothing frustrates industry more than to go into a debriefing and not learning anything from that. Too often times you'll have a situation where a contracting officer, or not even the contracting officer, a contract specialist, will be giving a debriefing by just reading the letter that was sent out. What they did at this debriefing was they enumerated the facts. They went through strengths. They went through weaknesses to let industry know that the reason they lost was because they evaluated proposals in such a way that the end result was a fair judgment that was awarded. They weren't the company that was in it for the debriefing did not win the award, but I think they may have gone away with the idea, maybe not all of their questions were answered, but at least the government explained to the best of their ability why they didn't win.
And I think that's important. The contractor has to understand why they lost, but they were treated fairly in the competition. And I think the passion of the debriefing team, it came quite across that they had followed a very rigorous process in accordance with the FAR, and had made a conscious decision. And as a result of that, the contractor should take away that they were treated fairly, that they weren't treated unfairly, that there was some inherent bias in the source selection, and that the government had followed the criteria that were set forth in the RFP. There wasn't any secret criteria there that the basis of award was made on.
Right. And one of the other interesting things that I found was on the industry side, it was not an adversarial relationship. Oftentimes, when you're in a debriefing scenario in real life, the contracting community within the federal government often goes with the idea that we are facing a foe, that we have to be prepared to go to battle with these people that are coming in here. That's not necessarily the case. Industry spends an awful lot of money preparing proposals. Industry has to wait a tremendously long time from the time an RFP is issued till the time a contract is awarded. They have to keep teams together. They have to have their upper management coming to them constantly. When is this going to be awarded? What have you learned? What's going on with the procurement? And so by the time the contract is awarded and they're not the winning offeror, there are numerous reports that they have to write. So they come into the debriefing maybe with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, but they don't come in there necessarily because they want to do or they intend to have a protest. That's not what they're there for. They're there to learn. And I again believe that the government in this case did that.
I think they did. I think contractors spent $875,000 in this situation on a proposal. Somebody at the contractor, whoever the proposal manager is going to have to answer to higher management. Why didn't they win? And you need to give them the answers to that question.
Were there any parts of the justification that you found to be a little bit, not necessarily strange, but you sort of raised your eyes and said, why did they say that?
The one about past performance, that they couldn't discuss what the past performance evaluation was, I thought was unusual from my experience.
Yeah, I had the same feeling. And the other, I'm not sure that they ever really came across when they were talking about what best value really is.
Yeah, I mean, it was clearly did a trade-off, but there wasn't a discussion on the trade-off. And it kind of got wrapped around that the technical criteria were much more important than price, but it came down to price was the discriminator in terms of making the best value decision. So, and I think the contractor asked questions about that. I'm not sure they ever got a good answer.
I agree, and that's the other thing that the acquisition professionals out there are already aware of. Industry believes that every procurement is awarded LPTA, whether that's stated in the RFP or not. We all know that's not the case, but the fine line between best value and lowest price technically acceptable is such a fine line that it behooves you, whenever you're doing your evaluations, that you take that into consideration. You know that question is going to come up. You know that industry is going to believe that you awarded the contract on the lowest price, regardless of what else comes out.
And I think the government tried to answer that by saying that, hey, your proposal was superior, but it wasn't worth $13.9 million between good and superior. But I think the contractor had some questions about that, and perhaps there wasn't enough information in the case where the government could respond to that.
Right. And what about the fact that they had the two superiors for the losing team and two goods for the winning team? Did that strike you at all strange?
Yeah, it was quite a, well, it may be that the superior was based upon the higher price. You know, maybe that's how you got from the superior.
Right, and the conversations that the contracting group had after the debriefing was over, where they talked about the fact that they didn't have discussions with the offerors, and that may have led to that scenario.
Exactly.
It's an important consideration for the contracting professionals out there to realize that when you're in that sort of situation and all things are being equal, maybe having discussions is not a bad thing to do.
Discussions might have helped. It may have been where they could have gone to the contractor and said, we think your price is too high for the following reasons, and that way maybe the contractor would have looked at the proposal and maybe taken some of the gold plating out and made their price more reasonable and may have got a different decision.
Right. And the other thing the contracting professionals or the acquisition professionals out there need to realize is that the offerors that come in for debriefing have very, very high-priced lawyers just waiting in the wings that may want to convince the company that they need to protest. If a protest is ever put into action, all the information that may not be coming out in a debriefing becomes discovery for the lawyers. So you really, really need to be careful when you're putting your files together that you make sure that everything that you want to say has backup. It's justified. And I believe in this situation, again, only because this was a mock debriefing and there wasn't a lot of information, I believe the government did a pretty good job in this case.
I think so, too. They were well prepared. Looked very professional and had a lot of enthusiasm, too, which I think is kind of leads credence that they made a fair and unbiased source selection.
Right. And whenever Jose Arrieta had mentioned in his discussion with the contract group from the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, that whether or not this was a good exercise for them to do. To a person, they all thought it was. And one of the things that we would like to leave you all with is the fact that if you have the chance to be involved in a debriefing, even if you're a contract specialist, a GS 579, very low level contract specialist, if you can get invited into a debriefing to just sit there and learn what's going on, it will be invaluable. The interface between industry and the government is only going to be successful if there is an interface between the two. You can't work on an island. Industry wants to know what they could do to support the mission. You want to save the taxpayers' dollars. The two of you both have a reason to want to talk, to want to be smart, to want to be educated, and do your best to communicate with industry because they want you to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.